Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are talking about the 2022 theatrical slate, and more specifically, there's this article coming from the Hollywood Reporter that is titled Studios Eye 2022 Theatrical Slates, Windowing is Getting Very Tricky. Amid a growing gulf between haves, anything Marvel, and have-nots, any movie like West Side Story, distribution chiefs are making difficult calls on which titles to send to streaming as early as 45 days after a theatrical run begins. When Steven Spielberg's West Side Story opened to a dismal $10.6 million at the domestic box office over the December 10th to 12th weekend, Hollywood was despondent. The next question, how quickly will the musical go to streaming if it doesn't rebound in theaters? West Side Story is hardly the only film caught in the crosshairs of a dramatically altered landscape that has seen the theatrical marketplace become a shell of itself because of the pandemic, at least for anything that isn't a superhero movie or a film like Free Guy that can rally younger male moviegoers in the 18 to 34 age group. Every studio is now having to figure out how to send a movie to a streaming service to boost subscribers or to premium VOD, premium video on demand, for those that don't know what VOD stands for. I know the vast majority of you guys listening to this know what VOD means, but in case there's like those one or two that don't, you always know those people, and they always make it known. It's like going on a tour group, and the whole, the moss here on this specific tree only grows on the north side instead of the west side. Now, we're running a little far behind, so if any of you would like to know, we can stop and talk for a few minutes. Oh, well, I'd like to know about the moss. Oh, okay, Jimbo. Back to the article before I tangent off for way too long. Before the pandemic, theater owners could demand a 74 to 90-day exclusive theatrical window. I remember when the theatrical window was like 6 months. This was prior to 2010. If you wanted to go see a movie, you went to the movie theater to go see it. Otherwise, you were waiting anywhere from 6 to 9 months before it came out to home video. And God help you if it was a Christmas movie. If it was a Christmas movie, you were waiting damn near a year. So if you wanted to rewatch The Polar Express, you're waiting till the holiday season of 2005 when it hits DVD. And yes, I did legitimately wait until 2005 to rewatch The Polar Express. Anyway, where was I? Before the pandemic, theater owners could demand a 74 to 90-day exclusive theatrical window. No more! As the country emerges from the pandemic, the window being adopted by many in Hollywood is 45 days. Moreover, there's nothing to stop a studio from abandoning ship and sending a title to the home earlier, depending upon its performance. In fact, Paramount sent Snake Eyes to PVOD at day 25 after it bombed this summer. Conversely, a big tentpole film could stay in theaters exclusively past 45 days if it is doing well. And I believe that stems back to the deal that Universal made with the theaters, where if a movie makes less than $50 million, they could send it to PVOD on day 17. But if it makes over $50 million, they can keep it in the theaters for the full 45 days. Quote, the 45-day theatrical window seems to strike the perfect balance between the prestige and exclusivity that only a theatrical first model can provide, while acknowledging that most films make the lion's share of box office in the first few weeks of release, says Paul Dergarabedian of ComScore. I hope I pronounced that right. There is no cookie-cutter approach anymore, opines one studio exec. I personally believe in the theatrical window, and there are movies that should be day and date. Windowing is getting very tricky. One by one, studios have announced that they could send most of their 2021 films to their sister streaming services as early as 45 days, although Disney is staying mum on an official basis. Warner Brothers' The Batman, unspooling March 4th, could benefit from not debuting day and date in theaters and on HBO Max, like the studio's 2021 releases. And Universal made it clear the new streaming plan won't apply to next summer's tentpoles Jurassic World Dominion and Minions: The Rise of Gru. Many of the films going to Peacock around the 45-day mark are adult-skewing action picks, including the Jessica Chastain starring ensemble The 355, and adult dramas underscoring the precarious future facing any movie that isn't a superhero pick or a mega franchise installment. Spider-Man No Way Home could open north of $130 million. As an example, we just did a prior video on the fact that Spider-Man No Way Home has now crossed over $500 million at the global box office in its opening weekend. Quote, we should just rename all theaters Marvel, quips another studio executive. Well, As I said in the prior video regarding Spider-Man No Way Home's opening weekend box office, Spider-Man No Way Home is a statistical anomaly. It is the exception for 2021 film releases, not the rule. Throughout the various stages of the pandemic, study after study has found that moviegoers over the age of 35, and especially older females, have been the most reluctant to return to theaters. House of Gucci, now in theaters, is among a handful of adult-skewing titles that has done relatively well at the box office after drawing younger consumers as well. The Ridley Scott pick stars Lady Gaga. Yeah, that's probably why. The film posted a 5-day Thanksgiving debut of $22 million, including $14 million for the 3-day weekend. West Side Story had hoped to match that 3-day number, but played notably older with 26% of ticket buyers over the age of 55. Well, another problem that West Side Story had is it has to compete with the 1961 film that stars Natalie Wood, that has been deemed as the definitive version of West Side Story. And plus, did Steven Spielberg's West Side Story need $100 million? No, it didn't. Again, you had stiff competition from the 1961 film that is still relatively available. Insiders say there are talks taking place regarding when to send West Side Story to the home. One reason to keep it only in theaters beyond 45 days is Oscar nominations, which will be announced February 8th. More imminently, the film also is hoping for a Christmas bump. Another reason is Spielberg himself. He is a fierce champion of the theatrical experience. Didn't he sign a deal with Apple TV? So that pretty much makes that point moot. I remember some time ago, I think he signed some deal with Apple TV to greenlit. I think he wanted to greenlight Amazing Stories there. However, sources say he has indeed come around to the idea that the old window is likely shut forever, and that West Side Story will be in the home far earlier than any of his previous films. West Side Story is from 20th Century, which sent its movies to HBO Max, even though it is now owned by Disney. But under a new arrangement, 20th Century titles can now also debut on Disney Plus or Hulu. West Side Story is expected to be among those films that do, raising its visibility from a streaming perspective. When announcing this year that it would be sending many of its films to Paramount Plus as early as 45 days, the studio did include the next Mission Impossible in that group, but not Top Gun Maverick. Both films star Tom Cruise, who, like Spielberg, is a fierce theatrical champion and could have been exacting some concessions. Says another source, sometimes it's still all about talent. But also keep in mind too, Tom Cruise is a producer on both Mission Impossible and Top Gun Maverick. So let's be honest, he probably doesn't want to lose his cut of the box office revenue for a movie like Top Gun Maverick. But the problem with Top Gun Maverick is it's now been delayed for so long, and I did make a video some months ago about the fact that the president of IMAX was begging Paramount to not delay Top Gun Maverick again. And the point I made in that video was, you can delay a film all you want. You can delay it to try to release it in that perfect window, but in reality, that perfect window may have already come and gone. Based on next year's lineup, as well as how strong Spider-Man No Way Home is looking, London-based analytics firm, I think it's pronounced Gower Gower Street released its estimates for the 2022 box office on Thursday. Worldwide ticket sales projected, I didn't read it right the first time, are projected to hit $33.2 billion, a huge 58% spike over this year's estimated $21 billion. Gower, however you pronounce it, says the film industry will likely have to wait until 2023 to see revenue reach pre-pandemic levels of $40 billion plus. North America should see the most notable gain and reclaim its spot as the number one movie-going market in the world. China ranked number one last year and this year. Let's be 100% honest about these day and date releases. That is a genie that ain't ever going back in the bottle. I remember hearing that that Warner Brothers did not regret their release strategy doing day and date releases, and there's a reason for that. Are they going to be willing to split the ticket prices 50-50 with movie theaters when they can get you to pay $17 a month to, watch the movie on HBO Max? Or even if you don't watch the movie, that's still a guaranteed $17 a month. So, COVID really forced the business to change for better or for worse. And guys, that's pretty much all I've got for you. If you want a more in-depth discussion about the movie theater business as a whole, where it was pre-pandemic and where it's going to go post-pandemic, I did do an interview with Bob Trait, the marketing and programming director of the Colonial Theater, the famous movie theater from The Blob where everybody's running out of it. You've probably seen that particular scene in a mashup of most famous movie scenes from the 20th century. If I remember to do that, I will link to it. But otherwise, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and truly end it right here before I tangent off for too long. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos. So I will just see you guys next time.